6, 2021, held at 7 p.m. on a virtual platform, Zoom, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Ledger, Section C, 30A, Section 18. We will be holding this meeting on a platform Zoom, and it will be also broadcast in PBD Access TV. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 15, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the meetings of the minutes of April 15th, 2021.
Before we do that, just a heads up, there were no meeting minutes. I did not get them done before this meeting, so I will have them done for your next meeting.
So can we approve them barring any omissions on review?
I would not recommend approving a document that doesn't exist yet.
I thought I was just having trouble with the system again. Sometimes I can't open everything. I'll move to approve 2 sets of minutes next meeting.
All right.
A&Rs and land court, none published. Site building and permit plan review, 535 Lowell Street.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna allow Al Yeba, property owner, as well as Brian Dundon, who are in the attendance, to come in here. Brian and Al, can you hear us?
Yes, Andrew, I can hear you, yes.
Perfect, so I'm gonna also allow Brian to share his screen.
Okay, you're gonna challenge me here?
Yeah, I'm gonna do this right. So this is gonna be, you are gonna be promoted to, oh, nope. I'm gonna promote you, Brian, to panelist. And then I'm gonna have it so that panelists will be able to share their screen. So you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, we can see it, Brian.
Perfect. You are all set to begin, Brian, if you want. Did we?
Brian, you there?
Oh, I think he muted himself.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Now we can, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we'll try it again. Just for the record, my name is Brian Dundon. I am a civil engineer with the engineering firm of R.J. O'Connell and Associates. I am here tonight on behalf of the project proponent, 535 Lowell Street, Peabody LLC, care of Berenson Associates. We are seeking the approval from the planning board pursuant to section 12.14 of the zoning ordinance to amend the previously approved site plan for the purposes of constructing a drive-through window for a 1,700 square foot restaurant tenant to be operated as Crack Kitchen on property located at 535 Lowell Street, which is more commonly known as Peabody Commons Shopping Center. The tenant space, again, I can show this on an overall site plan, is this space in here. By way of background, a little bit on the permitting history of this project. The project proponent submitted a special permit application with the City Council pursuant to section 4.2.6 of the zoning ordinance, seeking approval to allow a fast food restaurant tenant with a drive-through window to operate at the shopping center. The City Council at its April 8th meeting voted to approve the project proponent's special permit application. So that was the first step in the process. by way of a little bit of permitting history with the planning board, the redevelopment of this property was approved by the planning board back in July of 2016. Since 2016, I have come before the board with two minor modification requests. One was granted in April of 2017, and the second one was granted in May of 2019. And it should be noted that the May 2019 modification approval was to, at the time the shopping center was being constructed, was to incorporate in two exterior grease traps for two future restaurant type tenants. The first tenant is Cracked Kitchen, which has already been installed. And the second is a potential restaurant, a future restaurant tenant, which is identified as tenant 7 on this plan. If you see the where I'm pointing with the pointer. The site itself, again, is an existing parcel of land, approximately 4.8 acres in area, and is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Lowell Street and Bourbon Street. The site is bounded to the north by Interstate I-95 and commercial property, to the south by Bourbon Street, to the east by a series of commercial properties, and then to the west by Lowell Street. The project proponent over the last couple of years has undertaken a complete renovation of the existing shopping center. The site and building improvements have been deemed substantially complete this past November, in November of 2020. So we're here tonight. The project proponent has submitted a site plan review application seeking the planning board's approval to amend the approved site plan for purposes of performing certain site improvements in order to construct a drive-through window for a fast food restaurant tenant, which is planning to occupy approximately 1,700 square feet within an existing building located adjacent to the CVS pharmacy. So this is right now the CVS pharmacy footprint, and this is the 1,700 square feet that was shown here. The drive-through window will be located along the rear wall of the existing structure, which has frontage along Bourbon Street, and has been positioned in such a manner that the operation and use of said window will be completely segregated from the shopping center, resulting in minimal vehicular and/or pedestrian movement conflicts. The drive-through window, again, is located, this dark box right in here is the drive-through window location. The drive-through lane can accommodate approximately 15 vehicles with a bypass lane provided. Both the drive-through and the bypass lanes have been designed to require vehicles to exit the site via Bourbon Street, as this was a condition of the city council in granting the applicant a special permit for the use. Left turn movements to access the shopping center will be prohibited. The planning board has the authority to grant approvals to amend the approved site plan pursuant to section 12.14 of the zoning ordinance, provided that the plan modifications meet the design criteria as described below. The first criteria is to minimize the volume of cut and fill, the number of removed trees 6 inches caliber or larger, the length of removed stone walls, the area of wetland vegetation displaced, the extent of stormwater flow increases from the site, soil erosion, and the threat of air or water pollution. The site work construction to accommodate the drive-through window for Cracked Kitchen will be limited to a selective saw cutting and removal of existing paved area to accommodate a concrete pad to be located in front of the drive-through window and the extension of a landscape island, which is to be defined with precast concrete curb. There will be no significant earthwork activities which will result in excess cut fill activities to be performed. There will be no removal of existing trees 6-inch caliper size or larger, and or removal of any existing stone walls.
Brian, can I just stop you for a second? I got a message from Josiah, who's running the TV side of this. Can you click unmute? Supposedly on your, it should be a picture that says unmute on your screen right now. It's coming up on the viewing.
It says mute. It's got a box.
Or can you move it should say, oh, it's gone now. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. So there will be no removal of any stone walls. The construction of the drive-through window will not result in any land disturbances to regulated wetland resource areas. There will be no increase in the peak rate of stormwater runoff or its current characteristics. In the planned site, improvements will not pose a threat to any soil erosion, air, or water pollution. The second criteria was maximize pedestrian and or vehicular safety, both on the site and leaving from it. Again, I can go back to the overall site plan, but right now the site is serviced by three curb cuts. There are 2 full-size curb cuts located along Bourbon Street, and there is 1 restricted curb cut located along Lowell Street. And the restriction on Lowell Street is if you exit the site via Lowell Street, you're prohibited from taking a left turn from the site onto Lowell Street. The only movement you can make is a right turn onto Lowell Street. The drive-through service window is planned to be located along the rear wall of the cracked kitchen tenant space and has been positioned such that the queue lane for the drive-through window is completely segregated from the vehicular movements within the shopping center. As a result, there will be minimal conflicts with vehicular and or pedestrian movements. The placement of the window has been designed to accommodate 15 passenger vehicles with a bypass lane. The drive-through and bypass lane have been designed, as previously mentioned, to require vehicles when they exit the site or they exit the window, they must exit onto Bourbon Street. Left turn movements will be prohibited. The planned location for the drive-through window will not impose any restrictions to police, fire, or ambulance apparatus accessing the site. The recently completed improvements include an internal sidewalk system within the shopping center with access to both Lowell Street and Bourbon Street. The third criteria is minimize the obstruction of scenic views from public accessible locations. The construction of the drive-through window and associated improvements will not result in any obstructions of scenic views from publicly accessible locations. Number 4 is minimize visual obstructions by controlling the visibility of parking, storage, or other outdoor service areas viewed from public ways. The recently completed site improvements to the shopping center that were completed in November 2020 provides a 10-foot landscape buffer strip along the property frontage to Bourbon Street. And it should be noted that there is a landscape buffer along Lowell Street as well. The construction of the drive-through window and associated improvements will not require any alterations to any of the existing buffer zones or designated landscape areas on site that have been previously approved. Criteria number 5 is to minimize glare from headlights and light pollution entitled from on-site light fixtures. The recently completed site improvements to the property provides landscape buffers along the property frontages of both Lowell Street and Bourbon Street. These landscape buffers serve to minimize headlamp glare from automobiles onto abutting streets. The construction of the drive-through window and associated improvements will not require any alterations to existing site lighting fixtures. And as a result, there'll be no change with existing light levels. Criteria 6 is to minimize unreasonable departure from the character, materials, and scale of buildings in the vicinity as viewed from public ways and places. The construction of the drive-through window and associated site improvements will not result in any changes to the exterior building, to the existing building architecture as viewed from the public ways and places. Provide adequate access to each structure for public safety, fire, and service equipment. The construction of the drive-through window will not have a detrimental impact on police and/or fire services to the property. The recently completed renovations were completed in accordance with the approved site plans and provide adequate facilities to accommodate police and fire services. The police and fire departments provided written confirmation to the city council that they had no objections to the project proponent's special permit application seeking approval to construct a drive-through window for a fast food tenant. Criteria number 8 is provide adequate utilities and adequate water and sewer mitigation. The construction of the drive-through window to accommodate cracks will not result in an increase in demand for water and/or sewer services. The utilities services to support the recently completed renovations as approved by the planning board have adequate capacity to accommodate cracked kitchen. The project proponent has fulfilled its obligations to mitigate the project's water and sewer usage impacts as outlined under the current site plan approval decision. So there was, in the previous decision, we were required to mitigate our net increase in water and sewer demands for the site, and said impact fees have been paid to the DPW department, subject to the approval of Will Pollitt. Provide stormwater drainage and roadway and driveway layout consistent with the functional requirements of the City of Peabody subdivision rules and regs. Any applicable federal, state, and local regulations and the standards of the Department of Public Services. The construction of the drive-through window will not result in any alterations to the existing on-site stormwater management system and/or curb cuts. The recently completed site improvements were completed in accordance with the site plans as approved by the planning board. And the last criteria was demonstrate compliance with the intent and provisions of the zoning ordinance, including parking, signage, landscaping, inclusionary zoning, and environmental performance standards. The site is located entirely within the business regional zoning district. Fast food restaurants with a drive-through window require special permit approval from the city council. The city council at its April 8th meeting granted the project proponent a special permit for the construction of a 1,700 square foot fast food restaurant with a drive-through window. The construction of the window and associated site improvements will have no detrimental impacts to the existing parking facility, landscape buffers, lighting, curb cut locations that were previously approved by the planning board and substantially completed in November of 2020. So just just to summarize, again, this is the blow up, and if I can go back to the overall site plan in a minute to kind of give you a little bit of orientation. The work is really limited to a small area of the property. The drive-through window is going to be located in this area. To accommodate the city council's request that vehicles that are utilizing the rear access road to enter into the drive-through lane, or if they choose to get out of the drive-through lane and want to exit the site via the bypass lane, the city council was adamant that turning movement needed to be forced them onto Bourbon Street. So the proposal that we came up with was, right now there is an existing landscape strip along the side of the building that ends at the corner. So we're proposing to extend the curb in this shape here, in this fashion here, and increase the landscape island, extend it out forward. What this will do is, as vehicles are exiting the drive-through lane, it'll force them to come to the stop sign so that the car is positioned where it's inviting you to take the right turn movement into the lane, into the drive aisle that'll get you onto Bourbon Street. It would be very difficult for you to try to make that almost U-turn approach back into the site. And that will be the same case with the bypass lane, which is located adjacent to that. We have additional signage being proposed to accentuate the no left turn movement, and there's signs here. There'll be also a second sign over in here. Also, as a condition of the city council approval, was their concern was, as you were at this stop location right here, they were concerned about the sightline visibility up this main site driveway. To accommodate, to alleviate some of the concerns that the council had, we are also planning to install an actuated stop vehicle exit sign at this location. And what this is this is a wall mounted sign. And as you exit the drive-through, there will be a loop detector system cut into the pavement, so that as the car goes over this loop detector, there will be a flashing beacon that reads stop vehicle exiting. So it's a second line of defense as people are coming down to exit onto Bourbon Street. There will be a flashing beacon to say stop, supported by the stop bar, letting people know that there are people exiting the drive-through lane. I'll just take a moment just to kind of go back and orientate you folks with the site plan itself, the overall, if I can do this correctly. Yeah, so this is the overall site plan, just for orientation. Lowell Street is right here to my right. This was the restricted curb cut that I mentioned previously. We have vehicles, customers exiting the shopping center are prohibited from taking the left turn movement out of Lowell Street. There are two full access movements onto Bourbon. There's one here. Again, our drive-through window is right here. This is the first curb cut onto Bourbon Street, and this is the second curb cut onto Bourbon Street. The stop sign, the flashing beacon would be located in this location. The window, the drive-through window is located in this location. And as you can see, there is a long queue line that can hold 15 cars along the back here before it makes the turn to the side of, this is the CVS building. This would be the cracked kitchen tenant space building that this window is proposed. And just to close out the development program, if you're familiar, this is the in the game tenant in the game space, the entertainment space that is currently operating, and this is a future development pad about 11,000 square feet in here. But all of the infrastructure, buildings, utilities, and whatnot are all in place. So it's just minimum site work construction once the tenant is known here to accommodate this pad for that, and just be strictly building related items. So with that, that's pretty much the conclusion of my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Do we have any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I know you can't see all of us.
Yes,
Through you to the applicant, driver's ed was a long time ago. Who's got the right of way at that double stop sign situation?
The double, where's the right of way? Are you in this area right here?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so in the event that we have two cars approaching this intersection, the right of way will go to the vehicle exiting the drive-through, as beacon will be flashing, forcing the stop for the customer or for the vehicle coming down to approach Bourbon Street.
Is it one of those kind of stop signs that looks like a stop sign and just has flashing lights embedded in it?
No, it's you more commonly see them if you're in downtown Boston and you're coming out of a parking garage and the garage is sloped up and you trip the wire. There's a flashing beacon that says stop vehicle exiting. It's going to be one of those types of boxes. I do have a detail on it with the red lettering to accentuate and grab the motorist's attention that as you approach this intersection, you need to stop and slow down and let the vehicle in the drive-through have the right of way to exit the site.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions from the board?
Yes, Tom.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
That me, Tom, or someone else?
What the hell is? Drew, can you get the pictures of all the people? Can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
We can hear you. I'm gonna stop the sharing of the screen now.
Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Roy.
Through the chair, just a couple of things. It's kind of, I saw the other presentation for the city council. I'm kind of surprised you didn't bring it up here, but it probably would have been worth it for this board to know that, at least I think I'm right in this assertion that you already had approval for a drive-through window for either the space 7 or 6 or CVS, and you're just simply asking to relocate it to the other end of the building. Is that not true?
We had, yeah, so what we did is we had provisions for a drive-through window planned in the original design. But the drive-through window was not, the use of the drive-through window, at the time CVS wasn't sure what they wanted to do, was never incorporated into the original special permit application, because we're just not sure where it was gonna go. There was always in the original development of the project, an opportunity to accommodate a drive-through window. We just didn't know which tenant it was gonna go to. And now that we've finalized that, Crack Kitchen was the tenant that took advantage of it, as CVS didn't want it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't realize that it wasn't already approved, but that's good to know. I hope that when you or somebody comes, or maybe they don't have to come to us, but I hope that other restaurant that you have planned doesn't expect to get a drive-through window in that same alleyway. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's a true statement. That won't be happening. The site can only accommodate one.
Okay, and I guess the last thing is, do you have to move I thought all those spaces were just straight lines front to back, but it looks like there's a jog in that wall now. Is that jog already been built in from the original layout?
Andrew,
Looks like the last space jogs into the second space. Is that the way you already built it, or you have to move that wall to make more room at the back to accommodate the window?
No, there's no alterations to the building required. Essentially,
Okay.
Essentially, a drive-through window just gets cut into the rear wall.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, move to recommend to the building inspector that a building permit can be issued for the alterations at 535 Lowell Street to accommodate a drive-through restaurant, a Cracked Kitchen.
We have a second.
Sorry, I didn't put my mic on quick enough for the motion.
Joseph Gagnon, second. All those in favor?
Hold on one second, Mr. Chair. I will, I just want to take a roll call on this, as it is a site plan modification. So Attorney Arvanites,
Yes.
Mr. Simoes,
Yes.
Mr. Gagnon,
Yes.
Dr. Otto,
Yes.
Attorney Cooper,
Yes,
Chairman Betancourt.
Yes.
All right, motion approved.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Brian and Al, I will draft up that memo sheet probably tomorrow, and I will forward it off to the city clerk's office and the building inspector, and I will CC you both on that.
Thank you.
Okay, appointments. None. Subdivision board action. I believe that we have a late ad.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I put it in earlier this evening, a letter from Attorney Kelty. He's requesting an extension of Stonegate until May 27th. I will add that no update as of yet. I think they're working on things internally at this moment before they're going to come back before the board. That being said, I do plan on setting up a meeting internally with City Hall to discuss what happens when they refile and what that would in turn trigger, if there would be a completely new site plan or completely new subdivision or not.
We have a motion to accept the late ad, please.
Motion, Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the late ad from Attorney Kelty.
All those in favor?
aye.
Need a second.
Now I'll accept the motion for the continuance.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the extension for the Stonegate subdivision to May 27th, 2021.
Second.
Second, Dr. Otto, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Correspondence. Any comments on the correspondence? The Chapter 40B comprehensive permit application.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in your packets, everyone, you will see that there is the 40 to 42 Endicott Street comprehensive permit. The Zoning Board of Appeals at their most recent meeting opened up the hearing on this comprehensive permit and are soliciting right now comments from different boards and committees. So if the planning board has anything that they would wish to have me draft up in a letter and send off to the zoning board, please let me know and I can do that.
Did you want to discuss it here or just correspond with you directly, Drew?
We can, it's up to the planning board. They want the letter by their next meeting, which unfortunately is before our next meeting. So I would say if you want to discuss what you'd like to see out there, I would have it in that discussion now.
Well, speaking strictly for myself, I find the rendering of the building shows a building that is too big for the character of the neighborhood and not in character with the building, architectural types of the building. It's a lot of buildings shoehorned into a very small site.
Any other comments from other board members?
I would concur with Dr. Otto's assessment.
Thank you.
Would the board like me to write a letter opining these thoughts to
Yes.
the zoning board of appeals? Do we want to have a motion on that? Or
Dr. Otto, you want to make a motion on that?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move to request our planner, Drew Levin, draft a letter on our behalf to the Zoning Board of Appeals, opining that the 40B project on Endicott Street, and you can just add the street numbers, Drew. We have concerns about its size with respect to the character of the neighborhood, and also with respect to the way it is depicted being out of character with the architecture of the neighborhood.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Put me down as present, please, Drew.
yeah,
Thank you.
Through the chairman, I have a question for Drew. Hey,
Yeah.
Drew, even though we have concerns with this, isn't it true that we have no control over the size or the look of the building because this is a 40B application?
yeah. So I mean, it's not entirely true. I think that's the rap that it gets. The idea is that this is a comprehensive permit. It's supposed to limit the review process to create affordable housing units. And as such, instead of going through multiple different boards and multiple different reviews, it's supposed to be a one-stop shop that you would go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. That being said, the comprehensive permit supersedes local zoning bylaw so that you can create affordable housing. Now, does what you have to say matter? Exactly, definitely. I mean, this is read in by the ZBA, and they work with the developer to add in these thoughts and add these comments and concerns. Do the concerns always get met and, you know, things change because of it? Not always, but I mean, writing a letter like this does help. It puts it out there that you have these concerns, and I mean, it's read into the record, and you know, the ZBA will take that into account, and the Department of DHCD, you know, will see that as well, and they'll take that into account as well. So I don't want to tell you no, they don't mean anything, because that's not the case at all. But you know, these things are helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Council special permit, 1 Newbury Street. Any comments on that? special permit approval for 7 Lakeland Park Drive. Any comments on that? Hearing none. Other matters properly before the board. Drew wants to make a brief presentation on chapter 40R.
Yep. So I'm gonna, I've never done a PowerPoint on Zoom before, so bear with me for a moment here as I do this. Just pulling up. No, it's not going. I'm just gonna share my screen. I think I'll make everything easier here. Oh. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So I want to give a quick presentation tonight. This is about Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40R, Smart Growth Zoning and Housing Production. Just a little, think of it as a education, a little class on it. I'll explain at the end of the presentation why I'm really looking to do this. But I wanted to present this information to you because as you all know, when new zoning is proposed to the city council, it's referred to the planning board for the planning board to have a public hearing and discuss the new zoning ordinances and then pass it back to, or not pass it back, but send it back to city council with public comments on it and planning board thoughts. So I wanted to explain to you a little bit about what 40R is. So I think if I just, that's not how to do it. All right, perfect. So what is Chapter 40R? So Massachusetts General Law Chapter 40R is a general law that allows communities to expand and enhance zoning and use in certain sections within their community through the creation of an overlay district and adoption of Chapter 40R zoning ordinance. So in layman terms, it's a catalyst for smart and responsible development and redevelopment in certain geographic areas. So through this general law, communities are able to create an overlay district on a certain area, and then it will allow by right or by limited review process, denser, more compact development that follows a series of regulations that would be put in place by the Commonwealth as well as your community. So the Chapter 40R zoning will not change the underlying zoning of the certain area. So if a certain area is zoned a certain way, that same zoning will stay. All this will do is simply enhance or provide a certain expanded use within that area. And so Chapter 40R promotes mixed use buildings, usually some sort of retail or commercial first floor, residential up top, or more compact, denser residential units. So some things in here, smart growth. So we're looking for within a smart growth district to be compact residential and mixed use designs. Like I said, usually retail, commercial, first floor, residential above. There's an affordable housing component to this that at least 20% of all new dwellings must be set aside as affordable. And those would have to be at below or 80% or below area median income. It promotes and regulates with a compact design, and so that the law has different levels to how much is allowed per acre. So for 2 to 3 family dwellings, it allows 12 units per acre. For single family homes, it would allow 8 units per acre. And for apartment buildings, it allows 20 units per acre. So the idea is that you would build denser, but you would allow greater use of the parcel area. So rather than spread this out over a large area, you can build compact and dense, and then you can provide for more, opportunity for, let's say, open space, public areas, you can add in parking, but it really shies away from that. It really promotes use of parking underneath and sort of a parking garage, or really minimizing parking requirements as well. Chapter 40R started as, you might have also heard it as TOD, transit-oriented development, which would be same type of design and development and promoting of compact design near a transit station. Or with Massachusetts General Law 40R, you can also do it in areas of a city center. So anywhere, large population, dense area already. And then finally, collaboration. And the purpose here, it states effective and encourages community and stakeholder collaboration development decisions. So similar to what we were just talking about with Massachusetts General Law 40B, where it limits this review process, like I was explaining to Joe, it doesn't mean that your thoughts don't count because it's only going in front of one board. It's a public hearing. It takes in community impact and community concerns and questions. And it takes that into account when approving any application that would be submitted under 40R zoning guidelines. So why Chapter 40R? The benefits of it. So financial incentives and community benefit. This is one of the biggest things right off the bat, that if you adopt a 40R district, you can receive from the state up to $600,000 in incentive payments just for adopting a 40R district. And then every new unit that you create on top of what already is allowed by right in that district, you can get up to a $3,000 payment for each unit. So there's a massive financial benefit and incentive to this. And then the community benefit as well is that you are providing housing, you are providing smarter development, more responsible development. You are taking in a lot of communities, and I'll touch on this a little bit before, but a lot of these communities then take payments that they receive from the state and use it to offset different things. So 40R, major financial incentive, lots of community benefit. You have the community input, you have and the financial benefit to it. And then expanded opportunities. I kind of hit on this a little bit beforehand, but you are not changing the zoning at all. The baseline zoning in whatever area the district is implemented will stay the same. So everything that was allowed before will still be allowed. What it will do was then expand. So if no housing is allowed, for instance, in an area that the district is put in, this would allow now housing. So similar to what the 40B is, but this would allow, or this commands a stricter set of guidelines that are developed by the city. So you can add in that you can have it X amount of height. It has to look like this. You have to use these materials. You have to provide X amount of open space. You're really in the driver's seat for this. But again, does not change the zoning, only allows an expanded a use or just more opportunity. So much like I mentioned in the beginning, this is really a catalyst for redevelopment, reuse, activation of certain areas through really a city-driven vehicle. Weird pun, definitely, but it's, the city will play a part in this. They're the permit approval authority in this. And enhanced controls, I kind of just, touched on that as well, that again, a city board would be the permit approval authority. So they will be the ones that would have the public hearing, take in all the input, and that could be the planning board. So 40R district applications could be heard by you. It could be the city council, but you would be the ones to take in comments, and we would hear comments, from every city department. It would be a public hearing. It can also have peer review in it as well. And then you can there's a set of regulations on how these hearings happen and what rules and administration the permit approval authority needs to take. And that can be kind of changed a little bit, but you would have to seek DHCD's approval to do that. But Chapter 40R allows for control by the city on things such as designs and height and architecturals. So there's a really great benefit there. And then finally, greater incentive. Like I mentioned before, the idea that you can build, let's say, more compact, or you can build maybe more than what is already able to build in a certain area, allows for property owners, or let's say someone, a new developer looking to redevelop or develop, to build, better project, a more thought out project, or a better responsible project in the area, as they have that incentive now that they're able to provide, let's say, mixed use or housing in a certain area, and they're able to provide units that make it easier for them to provide a nice responsible project. And then so some 40R around here, but first there's 42 approved districts in the state. That was in 2019. And then just some local ones. There are Beverly, Danvers, Linfield, Marblehead, and Swampscott. Beverly actually on Sawyer Road just approved I believe 108 unit development underneath the 40R zoning bylaw. And I know that they said that the money that they received from that is going to the school systems. So I believe they got $300,000. Don't quote me on that, but I know it was in the hundreds of thousands. So they know that money is going towards the schools. And then just some other facts. There's over 20. So through this zoning, you would create the ability to create housing where housing might not be allowed at the moment, or create more housing that might be allowed at the moment for a certain area. So out of all the 42 approved districts in the state, over 22,000 units of housing could be created, but to date, just over 3,500 units have actually been created. So, this isn't you approve a 40R district and next thing you know, it's a major metropolis where there once was. This is, it's a slow process, definitely. But again, it's an overlay district. It's not changing what's already allowed. It's simply just providing this opportunity for, let's say, a property owner to redevelop their site, or, and find a better use maybe in that site that makes sense for the total city and the area, or, activate a certain area. And so finally, you're probably saying, Drew, why are you telling us all about this? What is this? So for the past year, we've been working with the MAPC through a technical assistance grant, and then also through a grant we received from the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs that we've been working on a 40R feasibility study for the city. So we started off looking at the whole downtown. We're looking at the borders of Main Street to Walnut Street, from Central Street all the way back down to Howley Street. Massive area. We've since revised that to show what is seen here in the top. So this is Collar Street, and this is Main Street right here. So it encompasses, this is the brook that goes in the downtown right here. And then over here as well up to Main Street, and it includes this area in here. So we've been working with MAPC as our consultant on what a 40R district would look like. And actually last May, we presented a presentation to the public about the 40R district and what we have been working on. Since then, we've come up with, and we're putting the finishing touches on a draft ordinance of what this would actually look like in the city. And next steps would be, next formal steps are submit that to the city council, and then, like most zoning ordinance, it would be then sent back down to the planning board for the review. But before we even submit, the idea was that I would send the draft ordinance out to you, the planning board. I would send it out to all the property owners in that area and post it, for the public, generate feedback. And rather than having an official public hearing on it, work through it as almost a workshop with the planning board and those that wish to attend the meeting, so that you, the planning board, and the public can provide their feedback on that draft now. We can get a document that, I don't think everybody's going to be happy with, but I think we can get a majority. that the planning board's happy to see and the community is happy to see, and then submit that to the city council so that it's already gone through a community review and a planning board review so that, you're not just getting something for the first time. So whether that's done just in one meeting, the next meeting, or it's done in a couple meetings as we move forwards, that's my next steps. And then we submit that to the city council. The city council would have to accept the 40R district, and then we would submit it to the Department of Housing and Community Development for acceptance as well. So I will stop sharing my screen. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Roy?
Yeah, just a couple of things, Drew. I was kind of surprised. I haven't seen any of these things, so I don't think any of us have, but there's a big lot of land behind the library. I was kind of surprised that you didn't include that inside your yellow bubbled area.
Yeah, so originally that was included, Roy. That property, though, is majority within the flood zone. So that was one of the reasons that we took it out. And it would be a weird kind of dogleg to, I mean, that's a comment.
Yeah, well, something is better than nothing. There's no doubt about it. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and that's, we like we said, we start off with a large area. We've continuously made it smaller. So, moving forward, Roy, there's no reason that we couldn't look at adding that parcel back in.
Yeah, the other couple other things too is that, you mentioned about density and stuff, and, nobody wants 8x8 bedrooms, so you can't dense it that way. And if you need to not monopolize the site, you can't go out, you have to go up. Mm-hmm. And that's in stark contrast with what happened when we made a recommendation to the city council. Time flies, but at least 1.5 years, 2 years ago, with the overlay district on some key parcels near the shopping center, Prospect Street, up on Route 1. And in one, I think there was 2 types there. And in one type, we recommended 4 stories. And on the other type, we recommended 3-story max. And they knocked them down to 2 and 3, respectively. So like I said, you can't dense out. I mean, you can't make things, rooms and parts of apartments smaller. So you got to go up. I would love nothing better to see the entire length of Main Street in Peabody look like Rantoul Street in Beverly, with all those beautiful buildings that they've built. It's great. There's restaurants, there's nice looking apartment buildings. However, they have the train station that you can just walk out your front door, go a couple of blocks, and you're on a commuter rail. So, but that's my only comments.
Yeah, so one of the reasons that this area was actually chosen, Roy, is because it might be too hard to share my screen and look at it again, but there is a significant change in slope as you go down towards the water. So we've actually been talking with our consultant about, well, even within the district, can you look at, properties that are in the back can actually go higher, because you could go up X amount and you'd really only be still level with, let's say, some of the buildings on Main Street, because you have the slope and topography to your advantage.
But why is everybody afraid to go more than 2 stories on Main Street? Are we afraid of turning it into Chicago and having the wind blow through there? It's ridiculous. We got to get out of the past and get into the future. That's.
Well, Roy, when
I yield the floor.
Yeah, eventually when we go in front of city council, I'd love to have you there with me and and pushing that with them as well.
Any other comments? Yes, Joe.
Drew, is there any correlation to this 40R and in-law apartments? Talk about density. I mean, in other words, is this gonna, this 40R, is this gonna expand out eventually in Peabody, and then anybody and everybody is going to be able to do an in-law apartment because of density and creating affordable housing? And I mean,
So-
Salem is in the middle of a kind of a issue with that right now, that their city council is voting on that this month. But it's not the 40R, but it's, you know, it has to do with zoning. And just on a side note, now the zoning board of appeals is going to be a majority vote, a simple majority, rather than a 2/3 majority. From what I understand, Governor Baker passed a law that reduced the approval status of a zoning board of appeals decision to just a simple majority. So by a 4-3 vote, it could pass rather than getting a 2/3 vote. But my question is, it sounds like, you know, they're looking for affordable housing and you know, and increasing density and all this stuff like that. Has anybody thought about the fact that this may eventually cause a lot of applications for in-law apartments?
So no, I mean, I guess I'm a little confused by your question, but so with a 40R overlay district, it's a certain area. So it's bound by geographic bounds. So within that certain area, you can only use or file an application for development under that 40R zoning lay. So you could not be like somewhere completely outside of and say, I'm filing this under 40R. It cannot work like that. And you can't just, you know, zone one parcel. You would have, you know, it would have to be a certain area. Would it correlate? I mean, I don't think so. This would just allow within that certain area zoning, 40R zoning and smart growth to be used as an application or to be filed.
Just to clarify that, I understand what you're saying, but you know, you've kind of opened up the you know, the floodgates a little bit, where you're starting this 40R in a certain area. And what my point was is that, you know, like anything else, I can see this expanding to different areas over time through, you know, within the city. And that may, in fact, if it overlays a residential area where there's single homes or multifamily homes, is that going to create an in-law potential? That's all. I understand it has to be included into that area and we're not doing spot zoning.
I mean, would people start putting in-law apartments in? Potentially, but you also have to meet certain guidelines on where these overlay districts are proposed. So you couldn't just toss it in the middle of, you know, toss a, you know, dart on the map. They have to meet certain guidelines on where they are. They have to be, you know, in a city center, or they have to be near transit. So that kind of gives in there. But would people start building in-law apartments? I mean, I don't want to, you know, offer a guess on that if it's going to happen or not.
Do we have any other comments or questions? Hearing none, thank you for your presentation, Drew.
Yeah. So I just a heads up, I will be looking to speak with the consultant. We want to just kind of give this little education session. You should be getting, I want to send it to you with more than a week for you guys to review. So I'm hoping to get it to you early next week and have it out for the public review of the draft ordinance. And then, like I said, you know, no time limit really on how long we need, because I want to make sure we have an awesome document before sending it off to the city council. So I'm hoping by the next meeting, we'll maybe have some members of the public here as well that might have some input, but to discuss the draft ordinance. Again, not a public hearing by any means. So this is not an official anything. It's just really an informal session. It's really a workshop to make sure, like I said, we just have a great document moving forwards.
Question.
Mr. Abernathy.
With the public invited, Tom, this is probably your area as the chairman. We're going to have to develop some procedural way of bringing them into the process by, you know, allowing them some time to speak as we would in a public hearing. I know it's not a public hearing, but it's going to look a lot like one.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy, Tom, to talk with you before the meeting to discuss how I really saw it is that it would be much like a site plan review where the board could discuss it. I mean, we could have a lot of people in attendance, we could have nobody in attendance, but I would figure it would be the planning board could discuss it and then maybe invite for some, if people are in attendance and raising their hand, it would be like a site plan review, Tom, maybe where you would ask if somebody want to speak and, they can just state their point.
You'd also have to limit it to that specific property, not in general. I would think that you could have people talk about off-site traffic and all kinds of weird things that aren't relevant to that zone.
Yeah. Yeah, we could really make it specific to, we really want to talk about this document. So, provide your feedback on what's in there and different there. But Tom, we can talk offline if you want in this upcoming week about that.
No problem.
Wouldn't it be better to have some time set aside for the community development department to meet with citizen groups of individuals who want to work through it with you? It seems like we're glomming two different kinds of meetings together that don't necessarily belong together.
Yeah, so back in May, we had a public presentation. Unfortunately, 3 people, Tom was actually there. And I said,
you didn't have the guidelines then, right?
We didn't, but we were presenting on where the 40R district would be, what it is. So we did send it out to everybody. I mean, we can look to have another meeting if we wanted. And I could talk with, the director of community development, our consultant, about that as well. But I just figured where the planning board are the ones that are, going to be reviewing it and providing a recommendation to the city council rather than, getting a document and then having really no say on it and being the ones to then be like, all right, what is the changes we want to see? You could enact your changes before it even gets sent off to the city council.
And I do appreciate that. I'm just not sure that our working session is the forum for public discussion in this fashion. But I, of course, defer to the chair.
Yes, Roy.
Just a quick thing through you to Drew, and it's just a recommendation. Judy and I, a long time ago, warned about this, and no heed was taken, and then it turned into a big problem. Please notify every property owner by registered mail, no matter what it costs, the $7 or $8 that it costs, because these people need to know that you're changing their zoning. And because remember, we had that problem, Judy, with a couple of people on Little's Lane. And then the guy couldn't get a bank loan because they changed it from non-conforming in industrial use in a residential zone. And it was just a nightmare. So it had already been changed. And he was never notified. They put something in the newspaper and they pinned something on the wall down at City Hall. So please take that recommendation strongly, that every single property owner get notified by certified mail. They get their tax bill, they'll get the certified mail.
Yeah, I will do. Was planning on notifying the property owners. We notified them for the last meeting as well. But just to clarify, not changing the zoning.
Well, I know you're not, but your
underlying zoning is staying exactly the same. Whatever is allowed now will be allowed in as when the overlay district is there. All it is doing is providing an avenue or an opportunity for expanded use within that district. So
I understand that, but two or three property owners that encircle somebody could gang up and sell their parcels, and then you could have something big next to something small who doesn't want to play ball. So I'm just saying that please don't leave anybody out.
Will do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I would just like to concur with Roy. I think that's very important. And you say you're not changing zoning, but you're changing the use. And by changing the use, you may be adversely affecting some of those abutters or owners. So I do think it's imperative that you do notify these people and give them the opportunity to voice their concerns within a timely manner. I agree. It's very important.
I just,
Peter, Mr. Avanites.
I want to kind of concur with both those guys. You're not changing zoning, but you know, zoning is what's allowed in a particular location. That's how I look at zoning. It can be dimensional, it can be use. And with this 40R, things that are not allowed now in a particular area are going to be allowed if it's adopted. So the way I look at zoning, that's a change that is going to affect people in that district as to what can happen next door to them. You know, and I don't see a whole lot of difference between that and changing the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I want to be known, I fully am prepared to invite all the abutters, and we sent out mail last week. It was not certified, but we did send mail to all the addresses listed as well for the public presentation, and called the majority of the owners that had contact information as well. When we had
Sure, I just say that so that the emphasis on we're not changing zoning may not be where you want to go. That's all, because you can say the same thing maybe in a different way.
No, I get what you're saying, definitely.
Any other comments? Any other matters before the board?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, there is another matter on there, which should have been, that was on the agenda, I believe, but it's the bikeway. It was in your packets. There's a proposed expansion of the Independence Greenway, and it's gonna be a bridge over Route 1, and then it is going to eventually connect up with the Independence Greenway on Peabody Road. It was in your packets. I think there was a cover letter that explained this, and then there was a locus map as well. The consulting firm that the city is using for this project, on behalf of MassDOT, is seeking comments from different boards and commissions about this proposal. So if the board has any comments about this, I can pass this along to Brendan Callahan, who's overseeing the project.
Do we need to give you those comments now, or is that, what's the schedule on that?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you, but I know that I would say if you have comments, I'd like to hear them now so I can send that along. But I think it'd be much similar to the 40B where you reviewed it and then we could discuss it here and I could provide a letter.
I'm sorry, Drew, I didn't see it in my packet. I'm looking at it, the packet again now. Oh, hey, wait a minute. I wasn't able to open it earlier. Okay, hold on.
So the project locus sheet, Drew, that I have shows only the 128 to Endicott Street segment.
Totally different project. You're right. That's this project that they're talking about. We were talking about the other project at another meeting, but yes. This is the Endicott. I'll share my screen so everybody can see it if you weren't able to see it earlier.
So just to be clear, we're not looking for commentary on the West Peabody one.
No, this is
at the moment. Okay.
On the moment. Yeah, this is
Good.
about this is Lowell Street is in here. And then this is North Shore Road, is it? And there's the mall. So the pathway, as of right now, if you follow my mouse, the bike path right now comes along here on Lowell Street. Sue King's is right here, then crosses Lowell Street and goes up by the hospital and comes out. I believe it's right about here.
Yeah.
And the plan is that you would go underneath the bridge, I believe, and I think it's in the project narrative, and then you would fall North Shore Road on the right of way, and then you would cross North Shore Road and go in to the woods to Endicott Street, following the old railroad right of way.
Is there really space on North Shore Road for bike lanes?
Not a bike lane, so they're actually going to use the right of way from
Oh,
Mass.
the 128 right away.
Yes.
Awesome.
Mhm.
The,
Go ahead.
on through you, just, I guess the only question I have is why does it end at Endicott Street and why doesn't it keep going all the way to Central?
Brendan Callahan could probably give the answer. I mean, I think there's plans for that to eventually happen. I think this section is just the section that's getting done now.
There's nothing to do there.
Yeah.
I think they don't have control over the land between the tannery too stuff there.
I think that's, yeah, I think they're working though for that to happen.
Thank you.
I should add that I'm not the one overseeing this project for the city. I actually have very little to do with this project. So if you do have any questions that you want answered, Brendan Callahan, the Assistant Director of Planning for the city, he is the one overseeing this project for the city. So please reach out to Brendan with any questions that you might have about this.
All right, thank you, Drew.
Just to clarify, board, no comments or
No comments.
for them? All right.
No comment.
This time I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to adjourn.
Second, Dr. Otto. All those in favor? Thank you all again. Hope you have a great weekend and a happy Mother's Day to you mothers.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.